Do you often find yourself going ham for like a few days, like just getting everything done, checking all the shit off your list, and then the few days following, it's like you can't do anything. Everything's gotten so much harder all of a sudden for no reason. Um, that is what I am calling in this video, in a very long-winded way, watching out for, well, I guess not watching out for, but labor and or creativity binges. And I say labor and or creativity because that's probably the most applicable for me, and that's what I'm talking about. So, but I mean, labor binges, hobby binges, all these things. The the majority of what we spend our lives on, binging that, going for long, unscrupulated periods of time. Unscrupulated? Is that it? Is that actually? I'm googling it. Hold on. Unscrupulated. Having or having or showing no moral principles, not honest or fair. Okay, well that's not what I meant. Um, for uninterrupted long periods of time. Um, yeah, I I find myself in these loops a lot, like where I'll have a good few days, roughly maybe a good week, and I'll do all the stuff, and then all of a sudden it's just like, oh, I'm not doing nothing. It's not gonna happen. Blah blah blah. Like it's just no, it's not gonna happen. So, and this has been it's been especially harder for me since I moved out onto my own, living on my own, and like I had this very long sprint from that transition of purchasing a condo and like dealing with all of that, packing, moving, determining how to decorate the place, purchasing the things that I needed that I didn't have, figuring out all of that for my own, for the first time, kind of. And yeah, it was a long sprint that lasted several months, really. I mean, and I was just, I wasn't getting everything in my life done, but those things were taking up a lot of my life and getting very done. So, but since then, since that transition into this and like coming from that state of my life, I was working 55-hour weeks at work, and I've never really worked quite that much in my life, so doing that for long periods of time were it just like rewired my brain in some ways, which is fine. It served its purpose, but the refractory period after that was quite something. I I'm still kind of partially reeling from it, I suppose. It's been a year and probably approaching a half. Yeah, it might be a year and a half now since that point. And I would say, generally speaking, my consistency levels have not stabilized. Um, and that's not to say that my consistency has ever really been stable. I think the longest time I've ever consistently done something that wasn't like detrimental has been like making something for Instagram art wise once a week for like a year, I think, roughly. Like, I think that's the longest I've ever actually consistently done something. So it's been a long term struggle for me. And I think I probably have ADHD. So I think that sort of plays a factor in my kind of slightly more manic spaces where like I'm just very active in what I'm doing. And then there's the times where I just, don't really want to do anything. And that's not to say that those times in my life where I choose to do nothing are bad, because they're not. But it's, I talked about this a little bit in a much older video now in this series. But like, I forget the guy's name, but he was talking about, consistent creativity, consistent artistry. It's about, a controlled explosion. It's about directing a rocket sort of thing. And the way that he explained that was that, if you let it all out at once, you don't have the energy and inertia to keep yourself going for the long distance. You have to control that and confine it into segmented periods of time that give you enough fuel to do it for a long period of time. So if you go on a 3-day creativity binge and get everything else out of your way in your life and just do only art stuff for 3 days, you're gonna be pretty fucking arted out by the end of that that explosion. So the lesson there is trying to figure out ways to programmatically implement long-term habits and practices into your life that can actually go on for a while. I don't know, but yeah. So that is the point I guess I'm trying to make, is just, be careful about if you find yourself going really hard in one evening, maybe say, okay, what if I didn't do it all tonight and did some of it tomorrow, saved some of it for tomorrow, and sort of started scheduling in essence of scheduling your sort of mental space and mental time around that, not not waiting necessarily for the massive motivation to arise for you to do everything that you need to do, and I think that's this also ties into a video I had a few back about that action begets motivation, and I think that's true, and I think consistent action begets consistent motivation. And so what I find most often is the problem for myself personally is that I put some mild action in from some mild motivation, and that slowly builds, and then I kind of let it go, let go of the control of it, and I do something so hard and so intensely that by the end of that sort of extra boost that I get myself to, that sort of linear curve upwards, once I get to that peak area, I do it and then I come right back down, all the way back down. And that's the problem for me, is that, I have multiple sectors in my life that I want to devote a considerable amount of time to. And since I have only so much of it, I have to figure out a system in which, or generally a way for me to be able to actually split my time in a cohesive and long-term way, Is that making sense? I feel like this might make sense. I don't know. But yeah, so that's the lesson, is watch out for labor being, work, or chores, or other things in your life that are not necessarily passion based or that you have a massive interest in. So watch out for those types of tasks, and creativity, or creativity binges, or hobby binges, or just, those two sectors of your life that you usually have the most to do with, that you have to do, that's on your to-do list. If you have, any mental cognition of to-do list, it's like, you have a shit ton, it's all there. But you doing all of that, it going on those binges, it can be quite difficult to get back there or sustain that, and I think that's also the other half of it, is like, it sets our brains up for this sort of constant linear thing upward, like the fucking stock market, like the fact that our economy, not our economy necessarily, but the stock market is based on the fact, or driven upon the idea of continued growth forever. And that is not necessarily, bad. It's just that for us humans, for us little, squishy brains, it's like you just can't one-up yourself every single day. Or I guess I shouldn't say one-up, because you could probably one-up yourself every day, but you can't 64 up yourself every day. And that's the sort of rate that I think some of us can find ourselves going sometimes when it comes to like one day not doing something, the next day doing 4 things, and the next day doing 16 things. It's the rate of increase is too high, I think. So in order to, one, adapt to that rate as it increases, and also make habits and form these mental kind of bonds with tasks and ideas and projects and passions, you have to give yourself the time to actually form those bonds. And putting it all out super quickly over the course of a few days is not productive to that. This is mostly just for myself. I'm not saying anything about the right way or blah, blah, blah. This is just my thoughts, what I've gathered amongst too much fucking YouTube videos talking about shit like this. And, yeah, because I've noticed it. I've noticed the difference it makes when I sort of try to spread out my tasks evenly amongst my time, as opposed to, like, binging everything. Doing it all at once. Yeah, I don't know if I'm just being super redundant at this point, or if this is adding additional nuance the more I go on about this. I think you get it, though. You probably get it. Yeah. It's a problem that I have a lot. I don't know what the fuck to do about it besides try to keep banging my head against the fucking wall of like, okay, I'm gonna do this, and then I just like gotta be like, okay, I'll do this for 15 minutes. And I'll, build up that little bit, just like 15 minutes, a little bit. And then let that sort of encourage me to do more the next day. Just like a little bit more, though. Not like, I'm going to sit down for 6 hours and do everything in 6 hours. It's, it's problematic when you get there. Sometimes it's nice. And that's not to say that, you can't have those binges, but only being on those binges, like for myself, like that's kind of basically how I work. It's like I'll just have like really high highs and then like really low lows. There's not like a, when it comes to my productivity or my mental state for it, I guess. I don't know. Also, my really high highs aren't that high. They're just, it's just too much for where I'm at. Like, I can grow there. I can get there. I just got to give it the pacing that it needs. So, little bits here and there, they add up. And I think that's what's most important. I mean, there's so much toxicity when it comes to the hustle culture and, like, doing everything, working 80 hours a week, whatever. Anything you want to point at as far as, like, generalized factoids that, or I guess not factoids, but like generalized ideas of like success. And it's a no. It's a no for me. Like I like the idea of it in theory, but in practice, as I've learned, is kind of shit. Like I think the reason that I was able to work 55 hours a week for like almost a year was like because I didn't go from like 40 to 55, I went from like 40 to 45 and then 45 to 50 and then 50 to 55. And it just sort of kind of slowly ramped over time. Like, and it was kind of almost like subconscious, like I wasn't thinking about it necessarily. It was just that like my tolerance got a little bit higher the more I went. And, I think that same principle can be applied to anything that you're doing. For me, it's creativity and follow through on my passion projects, and also taking care of my living space, because I'm really bad about that too. So, or I don't give it the attention it deserves, because it deserves the attention. You can, but I don't have to live in this way that I don't necessarily like. I can build for a better future and blah, blah, blah. I think you get it. Sorry, I'm a little stoned. I just wrote this topic down. Okay, that's it. That's over. The topic's over. And we're moving on to miscellaneous now. Okay. I talked about that for 15 minutes. Can you believe it? I did not think I had it in me. Yeah, I wrote this one down before right before I started it, because I was like, oh, that's a good idea. But often what I find myself doing with these videos is I I have like a list of ideas, but like I don't go back to like the old ones. I just only do the new ones that pop in my head. So I don't know. Perhaps if I actually stuck to doing one of these a day, it'd be better. But yeah, it's a little difficult. I mean, some days I just really don't. I'm not like home enough to actually film one, or it's like just super late, and I'm like, I don't want to film one. I try not to stress myself out about it because I do actually like making these, and it's actually a nice way to journal a little bit. Because like journaling, I've always liked the idea of journaling. I hate the way it feels writing it. Like I can write about topics generally okay. I don't do that enough either, obviously. But like writing about my day or my feelings at that moment, things like that, like it's super hard, and I just don't want to. I don't want to think about writing it. The brain dumping thing with just like putting it all onto a page sounds awesome in theory. I've done it like twice in my life. It's not easy for me to do. So, yeah. I went to my first trade show today. For those of you who don't know, trade shows are like when tons of different companies kind of just like come together to like present their products, and also like allow for vendors and consumers to kind of like commingle and like meet and talk and blah blah blah. It wasn't a big one. They have obviously big ass convention trade show style things that go on all the time everywhere, in Vegas and shit, that are like really industry wide things, right? This one today was just a the paper company that my work sources majority of their paper from was having like their quarterly kind of barbecue meet the people thing, open house kind of thing. It was cool. It was interesting seeing some of the vendors that were there and all the paper types and paper stuffs and the new cool gadgets. They had a really cool sticker maker thing, because right now how we make stickers is we print it on like massive vinyl sheets and then like put them onto a big XY cutter bed. It's a Colex cutter, and we like cut out small stickers one by one, which works. I mean, it's not a bad solution. The cut is not that great. It's good. It's just not great for like detailed stuff, because it's made for big stuff. But yeah, that was cool. I would want that in my life, because we do a good amount of stickers, not a ton, but a good amount. I think we could definitely do more. Yeah. But it was like a tabletop kind of machine, $32,000. I mean, honestly, for a small business that already has kind of a consumer base for sticker type things, I mean, that would be a fantastic upgrade, because I'm sure the quantities that thing puts out is like fantastic for someone who's coming from like a Cricut. Do people pronounce it a Cricut, or they pronounce it a Cricut? Cricut. I have a hard time saying Cricut. So yeah, that was interesting. I won a $40 gift card to Starbucks, because there was a raffle that we all put ourselves into, and I won $40 to Starbucks. That was interesting. The guy, oh my God. I mean, for one, this is my first time going to a print trade show. I don't really know any of these vendors. I went with Christian and Eric. They both know these vendors to some degree. I don't fucking know these people at all. Like, I've hardly had conversations with Kelly Paper. It's the person who was hosting it, and it was like, I don't know. And so like they called my name, and I go up there, and this guy's, he's like literally the hype machine. Like, he's like, yelling people's names. I mean, he's got the microphone, he's got the speakers, blah blah blah, yelling names. He's screaming woo. He's got the whole 9 yards. This guy, 9 yards, 10 yards, whatever. He's just screaming, and he's like, "Who's your favorite supplier?" And I was like, "Nina." I just like picked one, you know. And he's like, "Yeah, we like Nina, but who's your favorite supplier? Is your favorite supplier Kelly Paper?" And I was like, "Sure, yeah, why not?" I don't fucking know. It was bad. I was struggling, and then I was like shaky afterwards because you have to like go up there and people are like looking at you. That shit was terrible. Shit was terrible. Should have sent one of the other dudes to go get it, because really they were calling Prime Source. They weren't calling me necessarily. I mean, yeah, we just all three of us put our names and Prime Source on a ticket, and yeah, that was the one who was called. Yeah. Don't recommend it. I don't recommend doing that. It was terrible. I hated it. What else? What else? I think that's it. I don't got anything else. No, I got nothing. All right. Well, thank you for joining me on this lovely, lovely Thursday evening. I hope you enjoyed listening to me rant about whatever this was. And, yeah, I'll see you for the next one. Hopefully I got something good, too, because I don't know. I don't have many ideas written down. just the random ones that pop up in my head at the last second. Yeah. All right. See you later. Bye.